Alright, so this is our second quiz. I just want to go over the problems with you so you can pause and work at your own pace if you need to. Okay, the hardest part about this first problem is that it's kind of an optical illusion. And to solve it, you need to see this triangle here. Okay. So once I have that triangle, remember all triangles add to 180, so you can just take 180 and minus off the two parts. Okay. When we subtract those, we're going to get 102. I always write the angles in so I can see them, so that's 102. I know here that those together are going to be 180 because all straight lines are 180, so when I subtract those, I get 78 for the final answer. Okay. Alright, let's try the next one. I think the hardest part about this one is setting up the equation. So again, colors I think are the best strategy to not get confused when you solve these. So when I look here, first one we've got is ZHG. So that's right here. And that is this. Okay. And our next angle is 24. And that is this one right here. Okay, so I can already tell the whole thing has to equal this. Okay, that's the total. Alright, I'm going to pause, see if you can write out the equation. Alright, check in. Let's see if you got the same equation I do. Hopefully yes. I'm going to solve it real quick here just using our basic algebra strategies. Okay, and remember, it doesn't matter which side you subtract or move things to. Usually I try to move to avoid negative numbers, but it doesn't really matter. And right here we get x equals 10. Once you have x equals 10, it asks us to find IHG. So IHG is this one, so I would go 12. And plug the 10 in, plus 13, and our final answer is 133. Okay? Alright. This next problem here asks what's wrong. So the first thing, whenever I see to solve these puzzles, I see lines here. So that's a line, these two are supplementary, meaning they add to 180 degrees. Subtract those two, do that with me. Okay, we should get 55 for the inside. Now what we usually do is add these two up and subtract from 180, but what happens is when we try to do that, we'd end up with negative 5. We can't have a negative angle. These two are already bigger than 180, and since triangles cannot be greater than 180, we have a problem. Okay, let's try the next one. Okay. Let's do this in parts, see if you can do it on your own with a couple of hints. So the first thing I see here is I see a six-sided figure, and that should be the starting point. So pause, see if you can remember the formula. Get a six-sided figure's interior angle sum. Okay, there's the formula I chose to use. When I use that, I get 720 for the sum of the interiors. And since all these are marked the same, see if you can beat me to tell me what I do next. I'm hoping this came to mind. Divide by the number of sides, and I get 120 for each side. And so that takes care of A. Okay. If the A is this right here is 120. Again, I always choose to write those in. I see another straight line right here. So on the other side of it has to be its supplement. So 120 minus 180 is going to be 60. Okay, I could do the same thing on the other side here. So this is 60, and then all triangles have to add up to 180. So that makes this 60. So let's fill those in. Then I see another 180 here, and so it ends up giving us 120 as the last one. Because of a line, supplementary angles. The 60 because of the triangle, 180 rules here because of the 180 supplementary. These shapes because of the rules about interior angles. Alright, the next one has to do with that this is isosceles triangle. Okay, if that's not enough, when these two angles are here, these two sides are the same if the base angles are the same. So if that's 8, this side is 8. If I just know the top, remember the rules about triangles, 180 minus 140, that gives us 40 for both those angles together, so just one of them divided by 2 gives us 20 for both J and K. Alright, well let's try the reverse side. Alright, there's two ways to do this first problem. The first way is a very complicated equation that we could use to solve, which would work perfect. Second way, you could do guess and check, which would also work. I do not care what strategy to use. Let me write the equation if that helps. So we know usually to find one interior angle, we take the formula here, we plug in whatever the side is, and then we divide by the total number of sides. And that should give us the answer, in this case, 150. Okay? To get x off the bottom, we're going to multiply both sides. I'll write the next step in another color since I used too much space. That cancels out. We get 180x minus 360 equals 150x, and we can solve from there. Okay? I think you can do that from there. Otherwise, you'd have to do some guess and check, see the pattern, but the final answer should be 12. Okay? Meaning guessing and checking, trying the formula, just plugging in a random number. Let's say I plugged in 10, divide by 10, see if we get 150. We'd see that we were a little bit off, and you could continue to do that until you got 12. However, this formula would work just as well. Subtract 180 from each side, we would get negative 30. The two negatives cancel out to be back to a positive, and 360 divided would give us 12. Okay, the very last problem. I think this was the hardest one on the test. There's a couple things you need to see to get this. One, it says here that there are regular pentagons. So let's pause right now and figure out the internal angle sum. Interior sum of a pentagon. And I'm going to write 5, okay, because pentagons are 5. Okay, I'm going to pause and not talk. See if you can get that sum. Okay, let's see if you're with me. I've got 540 by plugging in and using that equation. Next thing is if they're regular, that means every single one of these angles has to be identical. Because all the sides are identical, that's what regular means. So if we take the 540 sum and we divide by 5, we're going to get one angle equals 108. Okay, so I'm going to write that in here. So 108. That also means this is 108, this is 108, this is 108, etc. Okay. So AEJ, remember you have to use 3 letters to figure out the angle. AEJ is this one right here. Now there's something special I see about these right here. See if I draw this line, and this reminds me that that total is 360. So we know whatever that is, which we don't know, plus 108 equals 360. Or without writing the equation, you could just subtract 108 twice. And that means our final answer for this angle, x equals 144. Remember, if I are actually doing this problem on a quiz, if it says explain your reasons and calculations, I would need to see a few words here. But since I'm saying them out loud to you, I'm not going to write them. All right, let's check the next one. EJF. EJF. That's marked right here. Okay. That's marked right here. We know that this one would have to be the same as this one here. Okay, let me just draw out the shape in the middle. That would help us. Okay, so we already found out from above. This is 144, and this is the same. And then it's marked on the figure that this is equal to here. Tell yourself, what's one thing special about all quadrilaterals? I hope you just said that it's equal to 360 degrees. That's equal to 360, just like the isosceles here on this last page. this is equal to 360. Let's take 360, subtract off the two parts we know. Okay. Whatever we're left with, what are we going to do? We're going to divide by 2. And we get a final answer of 36 degrees. Alright, let's try the very last one. KJM. So let's look back on the original figure. KJM is right here. Alright, again, my hint is look for the 360. Pause and see if you can get that. So I'll put that number back in there. Okay, so let's look back at this. So that right here, that angle we know there's a 36, and that there's a 108 here, and there's a 108 on this side, and we don't know what the last one is, and it should total 360 because we see the circle. So my suggestion is add them all up, subtract, and when we get that, we get x equals 108. Another way you could think about that, and maybe you could just see, is that pentagon is continuing a pattern, and the pentagon would have to fit back here. If you can envision, it would be like this, and that would be a good way to start to realize that that would have to be 108. And that's our second quiz.